So we're in such a unique moment in history right now, and I'm just afraid of the movement dying out because if it dies out, it's going to be really hard for it to regain momentum. And I don't want people to start getting complacent and thinking, "Oh, yeah, it sucks, but there's nothing we can do about it." I mean, the Republicans obviously disgust me. They've disgusted me for years, and not surprisingly, they're doubling down on their narrow-minded views. But like, what's worse is the establishment Democrats, and you guys got to be careful of this. It took me a while to realize some of this, but one thing that they do a lot, like the Pelosi's and Schumer's and people like that, is they placate us on the left. I mean, the real left, the Bernie left, like with diversity and symbolism, but they don't want to actually do anything, concrete they're very conservative on economic issues, and they're hoping that we don't notice. I mean, for example, they're almost everyone is kneeling and saying Black Lives Matter. Very important. They're taking down the Confederate monuments. That's a good that stuff's offensive. I agree. We should do that. It's the basic bare minimum of being a decent human being. But they're gonna do. What I'm scared of is that they're gonna do that and only that. They don't want to do anything to. They're just gonna make little tweaks, little nibbles around the edges, not anything to fundamentally change like the underbelly of the system, and they're hoping that we don't notice. I mean, I can give you plenty of examples in other areas. I mean, think about with healthcare when they say things like, "Oh, we want to give you access to quality, affordable care." That's just a nice way of saying we want to keep the for-profit health insurance companies going, and we don't believe in Medicare for all. And so when it comes to policing, like their answer might be, hey, diversity, we're going to, have more women cops, more black cops, more LGBTQ cops. I mean, those are all, in theory, those are all good things, and maybe you get a little less of the meathead, toxic masculinity racism, but if you don't change the culture of policing, really like, it needs like some major, major reforms. Like if you look up the Campaign Zero reforms, I think those are pretty good. I mean, I'd even go a little further than that, but they're still stuck on like it's a few bad apples. It's a few bad apples. We just punish the bad apples, then we're all fine and good. And no, like I said, it's the entire culture of policing that needs to change, and I think we're realizing that now. Even a lot of like middle class white people that maybe never had any bad interactions with the police before me. Even I think a lot of us privileged white people are starting to wake up and realize this now. Even if you take that view of like, let's just get rid of the bad apples and look, and I understand like if there's like otherwise good cops that they themselves maybe don't have any complaints against them, and they're nice to people, they haven't done anything like that, wouldn't do anything like that. I get that. Those cops absolutely exist. I'm not saying every single one is equally bad, but if you take the view, okay, if they kick off whatever the number is that have complaints against them of violence, brutality, if it's like 40%, 50, 60, 70, even if, let's say it's 70%, let's say you fire 70% of all those potentially violent cops. Okay, good, great. But if the same system is still in place, there's just going to be a bunch of new ones that are going to replace them, take their place, and nothing's going to change. I mean, you need more training to be a freaking hairdresser than you do to be a cop. I mean, 6 months was it 3 months or 6 months in the academy and just a GED? I mean, it's a joke. But people have to also realize too that it's a misnomer to think that all the marches and all the protests are that it was just about George Floyd. I mean, that was like extremely brutal, vicious, and but that was the tipping point. That was the last straw for a lot of people. After seeing for so many times, so many cops that did stuff like this, and laughable punishment was, paid vacation or they get desk duty or something like that. Oh yeah, that'll show them. And it's not even just about bad cops. I mean, there's think about everything that's been done to make people's lives, so many people's lives, particularly people of color and minorities and poor people, white people too, miserable in the last few months. I mean, they cheated Bernie, conspired against him when he was gaining momentum. I mean, they wanted to blunt him to make sure he didn't win. The one guy that wanted to really fundamentally change the system and not just make little tweaks to it. Oh, we couldn't let that guy win. I guess saying billionaires shouldn't exist. I guess that's more. I guess that's. I guess they'd rather have what we have now than have that. And what about COVID? I mean, the most disgusting thing is, the establishment Democrats like Pelosi. I mean, what did they do? Like, not Medicare for all, not UBI, not like a total rent freeze or anything like that. No, we're gonna subsidize Cobra. We're gonna give you tax credits and AKA more debt. That just shows how tone deaf and out of touch a lot of them are. You know, bragging about her ice cream freezers while people are starving, people are in line at food banks. I mean, that's just a joke. You understand why like I mean, obviously like the Republicans are freaking disgusting, but it's like I'm almost angrier at the because these are supposed to be like the enlightened, intelligent people that are supposed to be on our side, the college educated, and that's how they behave. So look, you get all these things, you get so many people that are broke, that are struggling, that already weren't doing so well. I mean, like that's kind of like that's another kind of mantra of like the wealthy suburbanite, people that call themselves liberal but really aren't. They're pretty, they're maybe liberal on the culture stuff, which is good, but right wing on economic issues. A lot of the reason a lot of them like Biden and stuff, or that they liked Hillary in 2016. Oh, we want to go back to normal. We want to go back to normal. Well, what I'm always trying to say is normal wasn't so good for a lot of black people to begin with, for a lot of minorities, people of color to begin with. Normal wasn't so good. That ain't something to be proud of. And now, I mean, and then with COVID, it just got even worse and even worse. And people saw this injustice and they're like, F it, man, this is enough. Look, and I always say people that are hurting want more than crumbs. All they're getting is crumbs and they have to fight to even get that. And then when they have the audacity to ask for more than crumbs, the establishment's answer is to be like, shut up, sit down, and this is all we're going to give you, and you're going to take it, and you're going to like it. But I think if there's anything to be optimistic about, I mean, think about it. The idea of like defund the police, how much that's caught on. I mean, maybe they'll be forced to do, if they do a compromise, they'll be forced to like, maybe we won't get everything we want, but it'll at least be a lot further than we've gotten before. I mean, that's move the conversation way back, move the, what is Kyle Kalinske? It's called the Overton window way back to the left where it should be, so that where we ultimately end up will at least be closer to where we should be. And as I touched on, so many like middle class white suburban people like myself, I mean, so many of the protests are in like wealthier white neighborhoods. I think a lot of people are waking up to this. I mean, there's protesters that have been, tear gassed and the cops being like throwing the first punch at them. I mean, who are white. So I think it's collectively it's waking a lot more people up to how privileged a lot of us are. I would say we got us white people. We got to own this. We are privileged. I mean, I got away with like smoking weed and stuff when I was a teenager. I would if I was black, I wouldn't have gotten away with that. And it's like it's about time that people are waking up and beginning to realize that. And I don't want to be, oh, we're in this together. That sounds so cliche, but like some of these, some of these protests are like the feeling at them is just it's amazing to see so many people coming together, even if it's not, even if we wish we didn't have to be there. Just the feeling of it is like it's electrifying, and it does give you like a glimmer of hope in these times that something good can come up out of the ashes. And I think it might take a while. I mean, look, the Vietnam protests were like 6, 7 years before. I mean, the war didn't end until 1975. That took a while of mobilization, and I think so might this. I mean, it's not going to change overnight, but we got to keep it on, and we can't. We've already got this momentum. We can't stop now.